There were two other projects I really like, Flower Crown and Peen Cuisine. Was this your venture into the food world?
Yes. So I've always been interested in food. I've been a home cook for probably 20 years. And it's always been my kind of hobby, passion on the side that I've never monetized in a traditional sense. One of my dreams is to write a cookbook someday. I think that would be so cool, either to write one or design one or illustrate one, maybe both. I had pitched some food themed projects to my literary agent who helped me sell Daily Dishonesty. And she wrote back to me saying, "Hey, these are cool, but you don't have any, like, not in a mean way. She said, like, you don't have any credibility in food. Like, no editor is going to publish a book from a artist necessarily about cooking, unless, you had a track record or expertise." And I said, okay, well, the same way that I built an audience with Daily Dishonesty around lettering and humor, maybe I can start nudging my audience towards associating Lauren with food. So I did a project called Flower Crowns where it wasn't lettering, which was a nice creative like break for me because even if you love what you do and you're good at it, it can become a little bit creatively tedious when you're only doing one thing, even if you're making money from it, which is still great. So I photographed myself wearing these very elaborate crowns that I made out of bread, cookies, crackers, bread, toast, all that stuff, and would share them online with my other lettering stuff. And that is a portfolio piece now. And I think while I haven't been hired by a client to like make a crown, for example, I think it really did help nudge my portfolio and work in a food direction, which ultimately ended up serving me now because I'm going to go into food in the future. But it was just a fun personal project that I did. And people still come up to me now and talk about that project. And it made me realize that, oh, maybe that was a good way to differentiate myself and like let people know what I like. Because how many lettering artists out there do you know who also do bread crowns? There are so many intangible benefits for all these personal projects that I do. And like the first two we talked about, Daily Dishonesty and Will Letter for Lunch, had very tangible results. And I like talking about projects like Flower Crowns that didn't necessarily end in a book deal or end in a big client project because I still think they have a lot of value.
And what about the thought process behind the Peen project? Were you thinking, oh, this might be controversial, people might not like it so much, but it took off.
Yes. So for anyone who doesn't know, Pete Cuisine is my humorous phallic food blog where, again, it started from an inside joke with my girlfriend, especially because I think in most cultures, sex is still very taboo to talk about, especially as a woman. I talked with my agent, I talked with some friends, and someone had even suggested, have you considered doing the project anonymously, just so you can do the project, but like maybe if there were repercussions, like clients didn't want to work with you, then they just wouldn't know it was you. And I thought about it and I was like, well, maybe this stems from, my wanting the work to have a purpose and being able to have autonomy. I don't think a project is worth doing if I'm not comfortable putting my name on it. I think it kind of goes against the whole purpose of being a woman who is going to do a project that is slightly controversial, depending on who you ask, that's related to sex. So I wanted to do it for me and my girlfriends. And I knew it was going to be one of those projects that made people who already liked my work, who have the same sense of humor as me, it would make them even bigger fans. And it would make people who didn't think it was funny want to stay far away, which I was fine with because the internet is a big place. We know we can't please everybody. And yeah, I was comfortable putting it out there. And I had enough friends who supported me that it felt comfortable to do. I've still been able to run my business pretty much the same as before. If anything, it's been a net positive because, there's so many podcasts to listen to, so many people to learn from, so many artists to support. Sometimes the thing that can differentiate you is sharing your weird sense of humor or sharing things about you that make your audience feel like they have a deeper connection with you. And that could be as silly as thinking that something like King Cuisine is funny.
Have you ever done any project that you wish you hadn't done or made some kind of mistake?
Ooh, that's interesting. I haven't done a personal project that I've regretted. I've regretted taking on some client projects before that maybe my gut was telling me, I'm not sure, but maybe I'll take the money and then you learn from that. But I really can't say that I've regretted taking on or creating any projects because I think my mentality is whatever decision that I made at the time was the right decision for me with the information that I had. And like, even if I, in hindsight, regret taking on a project, I learned from it. So it's okay.
And what do you feel you learned from your 1.5 years traveling around the world with your partner, right? And then he ended up going to do his own startup on backpacks.
Yeah, traveling taught me to slow down a bit, which was really great because living in New York, you just get steeped in the culture of what's around you. And if everybody else is working 60 hours a week, it feels normal to work 60 hours a week. And at the same time, like, I'm so happy I got my start in New York because that's where people move. People who move there are ambitious and they're looking to advance their careers. And there is a lot of camaraderie with that. And I'm so grateful for that. But I do think it was great for me to step outside of that for a prolonged period of time to just remember that, oh, people live differently other places and that work isn't the center of the world for everybody. And it was just I think it was a nice exercise too in really solidifying the idea that I can work remotely and that I'm so lucky to be able to work remotely. We moved to Detroit and like set up home base here because as fun as it is to backpack around the world, there also are comforts about having a home that living out of a backpack long term just was never going to be feasible.
You wrote saying that after that experience, you found you weren't more inspired from that traveling as opposed to just the everyday life. And I wonder if you could share a bit about that.
As amazing as traveling was and seeing all these places around the world, for my creative work that I do, like all of my passion projects, they're really inspired by everyday life, inside jokes with friends, just things I notice walking around. And I do think that holistically, that's been part of why my work has been so shareable is that I make work based on things that are just happening in my everyday life, which inherently makes them more relatable than something like seeing the Eiffel Tower is nice and aspirational, perhaps, but not relatable for the vast majority of people. And I'm not saying that everyone's work needs to be relatable at all costs because it's impossible to be. But I find that the areas where I just naturally get the most inspiration are chats with friends over a glass of wine or inside jokes or funny things that happen, stubbing your toe on the corner of the coffee table, things like that.
Let's move to the current time, which is COVID. And I wonder, how has COVID impacted you and the work that you're doing?
Oh, it's been a journey. Early in the pandemic, I felt very grateful to be able to keep working. Most of my projects still went through because I work remotely and I'm creating digital art. But a couple months in mid 2020, I got into a pretty bad creative slump. I tried to be gentle with myself, let myself not create for a while and rest. And it never felt great, but I did go through a bit of a creative slump. And the way that I got out of it was silliness and letting myself play with my work again, which I wish there was like a magic key to letting myself do that, but it was really just like a 6 month process of thinking about it, realizing that how can I create art when the world's in so much pain is not helpful thinking, and just giving myself permission to have some fun again because it doesn't help anybody if I'm paralyzed with fear of making anything that could be seen as frivolous was helpful. And now I feel better. But I just want to let anyone out there who's currently struggling with this know that you don't have to do everything. At its core, your art and your creative work is for you because I think it's so nice to have work that does help other people too. But I think what I can't remember who told me this, but someone was consoling me when I was kind of in my creative funk. And they were basically saying that by you just pursuing the creative things that make you happy and sharing that, it's again, without saying it necessarily, your actions are telling people that hey, I'm doing this. You can too. You can give yourself permission to. It can really give other people permission to do the same because I think so much about art. We try to give it a deeper meaning or a purpose. And sometimes art is just for you. And sometimes it's just a nice, relaxing, like on your nervous system, just a calming hobby. And I think it can be tricky. And this might be why I got in that headspace of being like, what does it all mean? Like, does it need to be important? When you do something for a living, it attaches another meaning to it. And so getting back into a space of treating art like a playful hobby has been really helpful for me during the pandemic because I just got to a point where I was like, this isn't helpful for anybody, me or people following me, for me to just kind of be stuck in this place where I can't share something unless it has a deep message behind it.
One of the projects I loved that you did was Taking Back Sunday. And how helpful was it in getting you out of that creative funk?
That was the project that got me out of my creative funk. So when I mentioned being playful with my work, so I started that project Taking Back Sunday, which is food styling. So it's kind of a combination of all of my skills leading up to here. So I love like emo, pop punk music from high school. So I decided to create a series of ice cream sundaes based on all of my favorite albums. It was play for me because one, it was a topic that I know a lot about and that makes me happy. And two, I don't have any food styling skills. This is a good excuse for me to experiment and not have any pressure on myself to like be an amazing food stylist right away. It was the only time in my life where I truly could approach a project with no expectations and no pressure on myself because I was a beginner lettering artist. No one knew who I was. It didn't matter if the project took off or it didn't take off because I just didn't have any expectations. Whereas now with something like Taking Back Sunday, yes, I let myself play. I'm new at food styling, so there's less pressure. But I do miss a bit of that like naivete that came with, I'm just going to make a thing and put it out there because now I know what passion projects can do. And it's impossible for me not to look at them through a slightly strategic lens. But I don't think that's a bad thing. It's just changed it a little bit. So I'm hoping that, Flower Crown, Peen Cuisine, and Taking Back Sunday, these projects are planting the seeds for future work with more food and expanding, maybe my lettering skills, incorporating food in there or some food styling with that. It's been a natural progression. Again, the niche for now.
So is that why you were deciding to firstly take a creative sabbatical and go to culinary school? What's the thought process behind that?
Yes. So back to your original question about how the pandemic has affected like my work too. I think, at least in my friend group, I saw the two main categories people fell into were I just want consistency and comfort right now because the world is in so much turmoil. And then the other group of people's responses in my life were like, oh my gosh, the world is in so much turmoil. Anything can happen. Life is precious. I'm going to make a big life decision and be more in alignment with what I really want to do. It was like a wake up call to some people. And I fell more into that camp where I think I realized I've been doing lettering for 8 years. I'm so grateful to be making a great living from it. And at the same time, I'm starting to feel a little bored. And it's something that no one ever talked to me about. I started having those feelings creep in again that I had when I was unhappy at my ad job. And even though I'm not unhappy now, I started thinking, you should just be grateful that you have a job. You should be grateful that you're living someone else's dream. All that talk that comes in to try to convince you to stay the same or to not make a change. And creatively, I knew in my gut, like, okay, I've made a career transition once to be more in alignment with the creative work I wanted to do. I'm in the driver's seat here. I am so fortunate to have the autonomy to still run my creative business remotely mostly. I have more flexibility in my career now. I have money now, so I can afford to go get another education if I want to. So I was like, you know what? It's been a lifelong dream to go to culinary school. And I think that with the thoughts that came into my mind during the pandemic, being in my current business for 8 years, having the security and stability now, it makes sense. The aha moment I had was my answer for the last decade whenever anyone asks me, if you won the lottery and didn't have to work, what would you do? And it's actually a really great question to ask yourself once in a while because oftentimes the answers were like, well, the dream thing to do would be X, Y, and Z. And we don't think it's realistic though, because winning the lottery is so unrealistic. But my answer has always been, oh, I'd go to culinary school and then just host elaborate dinner parties for people. I love hosting. I love bringing people together and cooking food and sharing conversations over, good food and drinks. And then I had the realization during the pandemic that, okay, if that's my lottery dream, that's actually pretty attainable. Like I don't have to win the lottery to do that. It doesn't cost that much money. And so that was the catalyst for me saying, oh, realizing that I had the power to do that was new to me because the lottery question positions it as a dream. And I was like, oh, this is like a rare opportunity to be able to do this. Also, the fact that I'm turning 31 in 2 weeks. And so I figured if there was ever a time to make a career pivot, it would be now because in 10 years, like if we have a family, I can't do that as easily. So it's again kind of seizing the moment.
If everything works out the way you wish it to be, where would you like to be in 10 years?
In 10 years, I would love to be making the same amount of money, if not more, doing something with food. I would love to be able to make doctor money, but with food. And I don't know what that's going to look like. And actually, I think a lot of times in my life, having stability and having like a predictable outcome has been comforting. But now in my life, because I've been running my business for 8 years now, and if I continue down the same path, like, and let's say food isn't a part of it, it's becoming more predictable, like rinse and repeat, which is not bad. I'm so grateful. But there's something about that that seems like I just know I'm going to get bored. And so I know that as an artist and a creative entrepreneur, part of my job is to keep myself excited about the work that I'm doing, because that's one of the, I don't want to say pitfalls, but one of the considerations about running your own business where you are a big part of the creative output is, let's say you're an influencer or an artist or someone who's building any kind of personal brand, or even if you're the CEO and the brand is, you're a big part of the brand story. Part of the business is you, therefore part of the job is making sure that you are engaged. Whereas it's so interesting. I feel like we could have a whole other episode on this. My partner, his business is not attached to him. He is a part of it, but he is building a business that he could sell in the future. Whereas my business, unless someone else's last name is Tom, like I don't know if they want to buy my business. And so that's one of the things that as a creative entrepreneur, I know that like culinary school is an investment in keeping my excitement and the spark alive in my business.
Obviously, you're doing so many amazing things. I love the fact that every time you start a new project, everyone just jumps on board, wants to support it. For people who are listening, is there anything they can do to support you?
Ooh, the best way that people can support me is you can follow me on Instagram. It's basically home sweet home without the e's in home. I got lucky with my last name. I don't know what I would have done for my brand name had my parents' last names been switched. I'm half Chinese and half Japanese. My mother's maiden name is Shimabukuro, which is very long. Yes. And probably wouldn't work for a quick, punny business name. And then I also teach online classes in lettering, mural painting, passion projects, which is, I'd say, still my specialty and my favorite thing to teach around. And people can find that on my website too. You can basically find everything about me, homesweethome.com, or my or my handle on social media platforms.
I was looking through your passion project class. Shout out to that because you've had amazing testimonials. There's one, Subpar Parks, and you have so many people who do that project, and that ends up being the way that they pivot and make it a full time career.
Yeah. It's so exciting to see people who use their passion projects to get closer to where they want to go, whether that's making more side income. Maybe they like their full time job, but they want to make more money on the side. Or maybe it is, like you said, to make a career pivot where it's like, I'm going to use passion projects to eventually leave my full time job because I want to try freelancing. In the Subpar Parks project's case, that again caught a good wave of internet. It blew up. Amber was able to quit her job and now runs her own like design studio and has her own line of products and has a book. It's actually quite incredible. I emailed her saying, like, it's so touching to see almost the exact same thing happen to her as it did to me with her passion project and my passion project. But other students have gotten book deals, internships. The best description and my number one pitch for passion projects for creatives is passion projects are like the rudder on a ship, and you can just help get yourself a little bit closer to where you want to go. And like I've talked about so many times in our conversation, just little baby steps towards the direction that your gut is telling you creatively you want to go really do pay off over time. Like When I did flower crowns in 2016, I had no plans to go to culinary school. I didn't know that in 5 years I'd want to make a pivot. I don't know how big this pivot is going to be, but we'll see. But you're basically planting seeds for future you. The same way that I didn't know that having the financial safety net of a book deal was going to help me quit my job. I thought I was going to love my job. And so all these little things that current you is doing for future you, I guarantee you'll be thanking current you.
The thing that's amazing about this course is you don't have to want to be doing lettering. It can be anything, right?
Yeah, any visual creative thing. That's where I've seen people have the most success. You can learn from specific people who have very specific experience. And because I'm a visual artist, the stuff that I teach is most applicable to visual artists because I'm a big believer in only teaching what you know. And that's all I can really do.
And just before we end, when I was researching you, whenever I think of people who are doing lettering, I always think of my friends who are street artists or graffiti artists. And I wonder if you've ever been tempted to explore that field, which is very different and be a bit like Timothy Goodman, for instance.
Yeah, I think so. I'm a muralist, which has some crossover with street art, but I personally never gotten into street art. I think it's what we were talking about earlier. And I know some street art is commissioned and like you can get permits and things, but I also know there is another arm of street art where the whole point is to not get permission. And for me, I think I'm just too risk averse to like the thrill of doing that or the statement you're trying to make by doing that, it has never resonated with me deeply enough to take the risk. I would say that I'm a rule follower in some capacity, but I also push the limits in my own ways. I am very much a give yourself permission kind of person, but I think the risk of getting caught in public painting on a wall is, I don't know, personally scary for me. So I'd rather take smaller risks behind the scenes
I
or
could
do
see
something like Peen Cuisine, right? Peen Cuisine is my street art mentality.
it's risky, but it's a measured kind of risky.
Yes, a measured risk. I think I'd be so bummed if the next day, whatever I created was like painted over right away because it wasn't supposed to be there or wasn't authorized, which is why the kind of murals that I paint typically are commissioned or like indoors for small businesses or offices. It wasn't an intentional choice. I think it's just my art style and where people naturally hired me to paint. That's just kind of where it ended up. But I love street artists, love Timothy Goodman's work. Props to you, like, for having the guts to do it.
And if anyone wants to do mirror art, you've done a fantastic 10-part series on Instagram, and you also have a course for people to learn.
Yes, by the time this episode comes out, the course will likely not be open for enrollment. I opened my two like signature courses seasonally because I could not remember to market my classes when they were just available all the time. I need a container, I need a deadline. I have so many free mural painting resources if anyone's interested in getting into that on my website or in my Instagram story highlights. And yes, I have a 10-part mural painting series too on my I was gonna say IGTV, but I'm pretty sure they just transitioned it to like the video section of my Instagram.
Well, thank you so much, Lauren. I have loved this conversation. I normally end all my interviews with these questions. So the first one is this: do you feel that you have found your why?
I feel like I'm going to be in constant pursuit of a definitive why. However, I do think my why, at least behind my art, is and has always been personal satisfaction. It's the autonomy around creativity is so empowering to me that anyone could like be sitting at home with a scrap of paper and a pencil and you can draw whatever you want. It's so empowering to me. And even though I do it for a living now and it has changed things, my why behind creating artwork will always be for me. And I don't feel bad saying that.
What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind?
I think I'd like to leave behind a legacy of fun and play and also encouraging people to be open and share. I think teaching is something that came naturally to me. And it's because so many people taught me and shared information with me that it's, I think, going to be my life's work to try to do the same for other people by, for example, writing blog posts that are public that anyone can learn from, but at the same time, balancing that with the knowledge that I can't be available to everybody because the internet's huge, right? So setting boundaries while also trying to create things that help the most number of people, I think is going to be my life's work and like something I struggle with and thrive at for my entire life. But the legacy I would like to leave behind is encouraging other people to do that as well. Because I think when we share information, we all win because you can't change and you can't improve what you don't know already. Even in small conversations, people sharing bits of like, how much do you get paid for that project? Or, what should I include in this email? Even knowing little things like that can be a game changer for some people. It has been for me.
Just a little side note on that. I mean, like, especially in this part of the world, sharing what you earn, it's a bit of a taboo. It's a sort of, why would you do that? But you are so open about it. I listened to your Adobe Max session and you just shared, this is the course, this is how I marketed, this is how much I earn. On your blog, you do the same. What's the thought process behind that? Has it impacted you in a negative way that people think it will?
If it has impacted me negatively, no one shared it. Even though I try to be as transparent as I can publicly, it's scary because so much of our social conditioning has been don't talk about it. If you talk about money, it's seen as rude because, especially if you make a lot of money, it's seen as bragging, which is weird too because our parents want to brag about how well their kids are doing, but you can't say it. Your mom and dad can say it, but you can't say it. It's such a weird thing. And I've gotten to the place in my life where I think that money is neutral. You're not good for having it and you're not bad for not having it. How can I be helpful to the most amount of people without sacrificing my boundaries? Being transparent about money and being honest is the easiest way for me to do that. Like for my Adobe Max talk, if I talk about how much I've earned from this or that, people can watch that and then interpret it through their own experience and say, okay, maybe I would like to do this kind of thing. And it's good to know that this is how much effort it takes. This is how much money you can make. I always like to be transparent too about this is how many followers I had. This is what I did for marketing. Because while I think it can be inspirational, you see a lot of advice of like, I can do it. I did it. So can you. Here's the Instagram, like 1 minute version of how to do it. It lacks a lot of the nuance of the specific situation. And I think honesty and transparency is the most helpful thing. So that's what informs me gathering the courage to share numbers because I'll be honest, it's not comfortable. I'm still fighting against social conditioning that tells us that it's bad to talk about money. You're going to make other people feel bad. You're going to make other people jealous. You're going to make other people feel poorly about you, or they're going to want to come take your money. But I think as a member of the creative industry, it's the most helpful thing I can do because it's the information I wish my favorite artists had shared. And some of them did when I was first researching if you could be an illustrator or lettering artist. And like, there's no glass door for us, right? There's no way to see. And we also know that it's not consistent year to year. And I'm also fully aware that even if I have a year where my business makes a ton of money, there can be a year where it doesn't. It's not linear and it's not like a slow climb in terms of growth. If you work full time, maybe you get a couple percent salary raise every year or a bonus. And for us, it's just different.
There was once you said that you were earning 30,000 a month and the next nothing at all.
It can be scary, which is why, like, honestly, the best tip, and you touched on this too, of going freelance, if you're thinking about leaving your job, is saving up money before you quit your job is the most practical bit of advice. It will help you weather the storm of the ups and the downs, and it'll make sure that you're still comfortable and can make decisions that are true to you versus necessarily like taking a job just because you really need to pay your rent this month. That's a position I don't want anyone to be in, but it's natural to find yourself in that position early on. And it's just, if at all possible, before someone goes freelance, 6 months of living expenses is ideal.
And what do you think are the most important qualities of a successful person?
I'm going to have to go with resilience. I think that the ability to be resilient and, if possible, coupled with optimistic is a really powerful combination because I was recently talking with a friend who recently went freelance. She was saying, it's been going good so far, but I can feel myself a little bit nervous, like I'm waiting for something to go wrong. Knowing that things will go wrong, but that you're capable of figuring it out, having that self assurance is so powerful. And I'm really grateful that my family instilled that. in me because that's what creativity is figuring out what to do with what you've got in front of you.
And for people listening who would love to follow you, find out what you're doing, where can they go to reach out?
People can find me pretty much everywhere on the internet at Hom Sweet Hom. It's my website, Instagram, Facebook. I'm not really on Twitter, so don't bother. But I think Instagram is the place where I'm most active right now. Maybe in the next couple years, I'll be forced to move to TikTok. If you want to send me an email, you can, but there's like a 25% chance I'll get back to you unless it's a client project because I've tried to take advice over the years of, hiring an assistant and like I do have one full-time employee, but she's a designer. My admin stuff, my agent handles, but things like requests for student interviews or personal advice, I just don't have the bandwidth for right now. So I think engaging with me on social media is the best way for now, or taking my online classes to get a bit of my thought process, or listening to the, probably dozens of podcast interviews I've done over the years. There's probably like 20 or 30 of them. So soak that up for free.